Okay. Chelsea, you can open the meeting. Or if it's not, maybe it is opened. I don't know.
I blew out a light bulb in the.
Oh,
Need a flashlight.
Okay, can we call this meeting to order, please, and all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
it's allegiance
To
To the flag
of
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
with
liberty
liberty
and justice
and
for all.
justice for all.
There be light.
Ah, there you
There
go.
you go.
Oh, even better.
Bigger bulb, I think.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the first Sag Harbor Village Board of Trustees meeting for 2021. Let us all hope that we have a good, safe, healthy year. We are going to start with our village attorney introducing a local law about updating lighting regulations to ensure continued improved compliance with dark sky recommendations. So Denise, if you can.
Yes. Yes. For tonight, I'm offering a resolution to have a public hearing for in February in order to update our existing lighting code to stay current with existing what neighboring communities are doing, and also to remain current with technology, because as technology changes, the ability to be dark sky compliant, which in general is a concept whereby, you know, we're trying to keep outdoor lighting, face downward and to a minimum as much as possible. And there are many reasons for this that are set forth in the local law, but it's important for our health, our ability to see at night when we're driving. It's very important for our flora and our fauna, for us to have a dark sky at night. And it's also nice just to be able to see the stars. So our existing lighting code was good, but needed some updating. So for the last, I would say 6 months or so, I've worked with Susan Harder, who's become an expert in the industry, and also Jane Young. Yeah. And together we've put together what's been handed out tonight. So if the board would be so kind as to review it over the next month, and certainly reach out to me with any questions, that would be great. And then we'll have a public hearing in February, so that the public can also weigh in and give their input. I think one of the most important elements of it is there is a sunset provision in the law that the board will have to consider. And what sunset means is that when you are adopting a law, ordinarily it doesn't apply to things that are already in existence. We call those, grandfathered or pre-existing non-conforming conditions. In this law, you'll see at the end, there's a section where commercial and residential development will have to come into compliance with the local law over time. It doesn't seem that onerous to me as an attorney, but also as a layperson, but it's definitely for the board to consider and for the residents to consider, the time frame, whether they want to become compliant. we can keep the grandfathering if you want to keep the grandfathering, but the way Susan's explained it to me, we do eventually need a baseline where sort of everyone is on the same path, everyone has the same sort of lighting. so that we are not constantly dealing with grandfathered nuisances that exist.
And if
So
we believe in this enough to have it as a law, we should believe in it, that we want it for everyone.
yes, I think so. So so it's a little complicated. It's not an easy read. So please, like I said, reach out to me or Susan. She's been amazing throughout this process, and is, you know, ready and willing to answer any questions that you might have.
And all of the trustees were here when Susan gave her presentation almost a year, well, over a year ago, probably.
Right. Yeah. It was, yep. It was right before, I think it was our meeting right before COVID when I first introduced this idea. That was before we had anything in writing, but just to sort of explain to the board what we were thinking about doing. And then the board gave us permission to put this draft together.
Trustee Corish, do you have a
Oh,
question?
it's fine. I found it. I was just wondering if it was in the packet, but I have it here.
Okay.
Yep.
I think this whole concept has come around, and I think many fixtures are actually rated by the manufacturers already for this
Yeah.
purpose.
How would this affect antique fixtures that are part of the village, part of the historic aspect of the village?
Most of the antique fixtures can be retrofitted in order to be dark sky compliant with the use of just a different bulb. And some also can be retrofitted by adding an addition to the fixture that will ensure that it points in a downward direction. So I know Susan will be more articulate about that than I am, but she went through several different options for historic structures.
And part of that sunset clause, Aiden, will apply to the village, that we will have to, over time, go through and change all of our bulbs to fit within the.
Right. And so that's another thing for the trustees to consider, is whether you want it to apply to the municipality. If you don't, that's the way it's drafted now, because that's the recommendation. But of course, the buck stops here. So, you tell me if you think you're okay with the way it's drafted.
Just so I don't have to dig through this, what's the time horizon on the sunset?
I think it's 6 months for businesses, and for residential, it's essentially when you're changing stuff out. So it doesn't read right now that people have to actively go out and change their bulbs. It's when you replace your stuff that you have to update it. Right now, the way grandfathering works, you could replace your grandfathered fixture with another fixture that also is non-compliant. And so that's what we're changing. So now, if you have a grandfathered fixture and it's done, it's gone, you want to replace it with something else, now you'd have to replace it with a dark sky compliant fixture.
And most of the dark sky stuff is just to keep the light from going out into the sky. So it's really a fixture as opposed to just the lamp itself.
Yes, that's
and I
right.
think that would apply to street lights. Some of them have hoods and some don't. Some are just bare bulbs. So
yes, yeah, the street lighting can be retrofitted, and I'm pretty sure that that she said that we could get it. There was some sort of incentive for doing it that was either low cost or no cost, which I find hard to believe. But that's my recollection, that we could have our fixtures retrofitted if we wanted to, by the electric company. And you're right, it's about glare. We've tried to tighten the regulations for dock lighting to make sure that the lighting is only on the dock itself, and not out into the water or going across the water to other neighbors. Making sure that spotlights, that understanding that they're important for safety reasons, but that they're regulated so that they're not overused and become a nuisance for the neighborhood.
Did you have a question, comment?
I just, I just have to say I have a lot of questions, but I'm open to opening the conversation and get the ball rolling. So I'm going to make the motion that we start to introduce this.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. All right. All in favor?
Great.
Aye.
Aye.
We'll talk more in February.
Thank you.
Thanks, Denise.
You're
All right.
welcome.
A continued public hearing about our local law to amend chapter 300 to allow a, I guess what we call mini reviews by just 2 members for certain applications in the village code with the Historic Preservation and Architectural Review Board. This is trying to speed up a couple of things. We have an awful lot that comes in front of this board. It's been slow, and we are hoping that with some of the few things that can be easily done can be done by just 2 members reviewing it and seeing if it stays within that. Is there anyone who has anything they want to say? If they can raise their hands. Chelsea, do you see Anthony? Can you unmute him, please? Anthony, if you can tell us your name and where you live.
Sorry, hold on.
Anthony, raise your hand again, please.
I think he was applauding. That's what I thought he was doing.
Oh,
Yeah,
maybe.
she was applauding.
I
Oh,
was
are you
raising
just
it.
applauding? You don't want to be?
Denise, I have a quick question.
Yes.
Hello,
Sure.
can you hear me now?
Oh,
Yes, we can.
Okay, yeah. So I just had a question here. What do we know what specific projects are going to be, types of projects are going to go before the 2-person committee?
Yes, we do. So it would be applications for signs, paint color changes, new roofs, decks, patios, gates, fences, walls, driveway aprons, and new driveways shall be initially reviewed by a committee of 2 members to determine whether or not consideration by the full board is necessary.
Okay, sounds like a good list. I don't have any objections. Sounds good.
If
Thanks.
you're turned down by the 2-member committee, do you have the right to appeal to the full board?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Good.
Good. Sounds great.
All right. Can we take a vote on this, or we're keeping this open for SHPO?
We have to keep this open for comments back. We're in negotiations with SHPO.
Okay.
Right. So we'll get back to, unfortunately, we have to get back to you next month about what they say.
Okay. So if there's anyone else out there who wants to say anything, you can say it next month as well, or write a letter in the meantime.
So I'll make a motion. We continue the process.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
If I can get a approval of the minutes of our regular meeting held on December 8th and our special meeting versus teleconference held on December 28th.
So moved.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Our treasurer's report. We have our new treasurer, Tim Bullock, on the line. This is in everyone's packets. There is a tremendous amount of information in our packets about our budget, but I believe we're just going to do the sort of overall by department and revenue pages. Is that correct, Tim? And
Yeah, I was going to do a quick overview.
great.
I mean, for the year so far through revenues, this is again through November, so it's halfway through our budget year. We're pretty much on point with everything. The only thing that's kind of lacking is our fines and forfeitures or justice court. That's mostly due to the closure of the courts. Otherwise, we're pretty on point for our revenues. And then as for expenditures overall for the village. We're at 40%. So our spending is a little less. And this has to be mostly because of projects have been pushed off, items have been pushed off because of COVID. Obviously, we're closed now. That's a huge reason. I mean, other than that, I foresee our, expenditures again picking up once we do reopen fully. And I mean, I don't know if you want me to go into other departments. Departments, for the most part, they're about 30 to 50% expenditure wise per department.
But what's the dollar value of the parking fine reduction, the lesser income?
For parking?
No, the fines and
Oh.
forfeitures and parking.
Justice Court?
Just roughly.
So to date, I mean, we're about 130,000, and I mean, to last year we were almost at 300,000 already for the fines and forfeiture. So I mean, this is a big hit for Justice Court.
Yeah, we're looking at probably over the year 300 missing.
Yeah.
I think the prudent planning is to treat this 50% differential as pretty much where we're going to wind up.
I mean, I do know that the influence of sewage treatment plants is down 25% year on year. So that's a direct indication of the amount of business going on in town and everything else. So just as an indicator, doesn't say much more than that. But I
That's
agree with
funny,
Jim.
'cause there's so many more people here, but I guess the water usage is a lot less for a house.
Right.
Must be.
Yeah, and it's restaurant, I mean, it's all.
And the restaurants aren't doing the same numbers.
Right.
Tim, looking forward based on these differentials you're finding in these various lines,
Mhm.
what would you project at the end of this fiscal year? We have some things that are performing ahead of the budget and some performing behind. Do you have a sense yet of where we end up?
Well, I do want to put a little cash flow projection together. I haven't done it yet because it's hard to do. It's a monthly thing that we'll end up doing. So let's get put together. So it's hard to project out where our spending is, whether the curves and the ebbs and flows are. But once I do have that together, we can really look at the spending of each department and where they pick up, where they lack each month by month. So it's hard to say if we're going to pick up in certain departments or not. But I would think towards end of the season we will pick up a little more.
We'll pick up as in more expenditures or,
Yeah, more expenditures. Yeah.
so we shouldn't be excited about all these ones that are at 40% and 30%.
I would think not. Yes.
Right.
All right.
And we will talk in a little bit about budget for next year and the
Mhm.
schedule for all of that.
Yep. Started putting that together, and we'll be talking about budget in a month or so.
Tim, could I just ask you one other thing? You've got a schedule now of indebtedness
Mm-hmm.
projected at May 2021. So that's projected at the end of the fiscal year.
What's this debt schedule I gave you prior in the last
Yeah.
month? Yeah, so that's just the year-end schedule that I put together, and it's just dated really just for the auditors and everything, but that is pretty much is going to be 100%. That budget for debt service is at 100% by the end of the year. For the most part, we already paid all the principal payments. We just have to pay the interest payments going forward, I believe.
Okay, but the total number, the total indebtedness is about $6 million.
Yes.
Okay, and it is costing us about $350 to service it.
Regarding interest and stuff, or?
Well, that's. I guess I might be mistakenly combining them. So, what is it costing us on an annual basis to support that or to service that $6 billion in debt?
Right now, since it's really that big ban that we recently purchased for 6445. That didn't really hit yet. The principal payments I'll hit next year, but this current year, I mean, we're doing 474,000 for debt just for this year. But after we do start doing debt payments for that $4 million ban, then I'll probably pick up most likely double for principal payments for that. So it'll probably be 800,000 next year, I would presume.
In debt service, meaning
Yeah, just
interest
service.
and principal?
Yes.
Okay. And so, at least in theory, that $6 billion, the $6 million total will come down some because there's some amortization built into.
Yes.
From a cash flow point of view, we'll be paying about 800,000 a year.
Yep.
Yep. Okay. Clarified. Thank you.
No problem.
All right. Thank you very much. Can I get a motion to accept the treasurer's report, please?
I'll move it.
Second,
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Our next is discussion items. And again, we will talk about paid parking. We had this presentation at our last meeting. We are going to go through it again very, very quickly. We have Lex Bloom here from Park Mobile. If anyone has any questions as we go through it, but if you want to, Chelsea, if you can share your screen with Trustee Corish, he'll go through, or do you have it ready?
we don't have it queued up. I was just going to do it verbally and just, we don't need to go through the whole thing. I'll just hit the main points. So paid parking initiative 2021. This is going to be a recap of the presentation we did. In the core of the village, we have 898 parking spaces spread out in various parking lots. We are proposing that paid parking would apply to Main Street and to Long Wharf, which is 221 spaces, which represents about 25% of the parking in the village. So just Main Street and Long Wharf. All the current 30-minute parking spaces will remain unchanged. They'll be free. They'll be 30 minutes. You don't have to participate in this in the app or the program or anything to use the 30-minute spaces. You come, you park just like you would do today. The same is true for all of the handicap parking spaces that we have in town. Nothing will change there. They will not be involved with the app. You can come and park in a handicap space just like you always have. The same time restrictions will apply to them. Now, when it comes to the paid parking aspect of this, there'll be various parking sessions, but regardless of what time of the day you park, you will have a 1-hour grace period. Paid parking will begin at 10 o'clock in the morning and it will end at midnight. But you will have your first hour will be free, but you will be obliged to participate in the app and to register so that if you stay over that hour, you'll get a note, you'll get a text so that you can begin to make a payment, so you'll avoid a parking ticket. The season for parking we're proposing is May 29th to October 11th, which is Columbus Day. And the sessions will start at 10 a.m., as I said, and they'll end at midnight. Proposal right now is from 10 to 5 p.m. The maximum stay would be 3 hours. First hour free, second hour $5, third hour $7.50. And then the 5 p.m. to midnight, the maximum stay would be 4 hours because people's dwell times in the evenings tends to be longer than during the day. Dinner, movie, dinner, theater. So from 5 p.m. to midnight, maximum stay is 4 hours. First hour again is free. Second hour is $5. Third hour is $7.50. And there's a premium on the fourth hour because we really want to encourage a turnover in the village because that's more advantageous to the merchants. So the fourth hour will be $15. The methodology we're proposing is a smartphone app based payment. There'll be no parking meters. You can also pay by dialing an 800 number. We'll have minimal signage. We may have more signage when we introduce the program, and we'll reduce it as people become aware and people understand that they're in a paid parking zone. We're going to have a discount for residents. The exact amount of that discount is just yet to be established, but there will be a discount for residents. Same discount will apply for all first responders, regardless of whether they are resident or not. So all first responders would be able to get the same discount as village residents. The maximum discount would apply to 2 vehicles per home. The proposed vendor is Parkmobile, and we have a gentleman there, Rep. Lexus, here this evening, so he can talk about his company more than I can. Just so you know, local villages, East Hampton is planning and Southampton is considering paid parking for 2021, and both are considering Parkmobile as a vendor. So we'd have 3 villages on the east end with 1 parking system. Times and rates may differ from village to village. We're all different. We have different needs, and we have different ebb and flow of traffic during the day. There's an app, or there's a link that you can go onto Parkmobile. This we'll post it on the website, village website. So if you want to find out more or you want to educate yourself, you'll be able to go there and have a deeper dive. From the village's perspective, expenses and revenue, we think we know there's no upfront setup costs from Parkmobile. We'll get zone signage, geofencing, and app setup. As part of the service from them, they will charge 35 cents per transaction, not per hour. And so we believe that during the summer periods, if our residents would sort of like walk a minute, we could almost make $1 million for the village, which we know that we have a lot of work to do on infrastructure. So if village residents park off Main Street, park in the parking lots, we can help a lot in being able to improve our village infrastructure without increasing taxes. Other paid premium parking, other community experience. As we said, East Hampton and East Hampton are planning on it, Southampton considering. Nantucket Village was planning on paid parking downtown for this summer. Unfortunately, like us, COVID intervened, so that was postponed. Bar Harbor's revenue was far in excess of what they imagined. And as far as rates go, Palm Beach parking, hourly rate is $5. New York City, $7.50. Aspen is $4 to $6 downtown. Our revenue would be earmarked for sidewalk repair, installation, street infrastructure, creating more bike lanes, making the village more pedestrianized. And we could think about street furniture, benches, litter bins, and all that sort of good stuff that we want. And we could do all of this. I think it would be a great benefit to the village without increasing tax on our residents. And with that, I think I will hand it over to Lex, Mayor.
Lex, do you want to just introduce Park Mobile? And
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Good evening. My name is Lex Blum. I'm the regional sales manager here at Park Mobile. I've been working with Mayor Mulcahy, Aiden, and the chief for a couple of months now, pre-COVID, on this paid parking idea in Sag Harbor. Like Aiden said, he really hit the nail on the head. He described our program in pretty good detail. There's not a lot that you missed, so thank you for that. The one thing that I would like to touch on, though, is pricing. Just to reiterate, there are no upfront costs to the village. Our program is a transaction-based pricing structure, so our fees are passed on to the end user. All the municipal clients that we work with, and that's over 450 nationwide, New York City being one of them, and like Ada mentioned, we're in talks with, we've actually contracted with East Hampton, and we're hopefully talking with Southampton soon as well. So there really are minimal costs to the village to get this program up and running. We provide all of those signs, those initial signs free of cost. We work hand in hand with the village on marketing and spreading word about, what Park Mobile is, how do people sign up for it, what are these new fees that are going to be charged, and we'll also integrate directly with the handheld devices that the police department is using for enforcement, which creates a seamless flow for them. So there's not any more work, for them to go and check a paid transaction. They just simply have to type in a license plate and it'll tell them if it's paid or not. And so we're excited to try and move forward with this program in this coming year.
thank you. For anyone who's interested, the Sag Harbor Express is doing an express session on January 14th at 4 p.m., I believe.
Yeah, Thursday at 4.
Thursday at 4. Lex, Aiden, East Hampton representatives, Southampton representatives will all be there. Members of the Chamber of Commerce from Sag Harbor will be there. So there more information available there. information available here. We will bring this in as a resolution at either our work session or our next board meeting, and there will be public input in February. But if we want this to happen for this summer, we do need to vote in March. So public input will be limited to February. Is there anyone who has any questions at the moment? Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
So have we discussed at all what the discount would be for the village residents, or we're still in discussion about that?
We haven't come to a number on that yet. We were around the 20-25% discount on the rate, but that's something that we have to discuss with it. I think it will come up in the public hearing as well as to where people feel comfortable with that. I think 20% personally, but I'm just one voice.
That's on top of the hour free and the.
That's on top of the hour free. And again, everyone has to remember, we're not talking about the entire village. Nothing changes other than Main Street, Long Wharf, and it is May through October, 10 a.m. to midnight. If you come in for an hour to do grocery shopping or whatever, you don't have to pay for an hour. Any time of the day or any time of the evening. That first hour is free for everybody. And I think the benefit to the village will be enormous. We have, we just talked about the village debt there with Jim. And we talk about the infrastructure. We're constantly fielding questions about pavements on various parts of the village that do need work. And I think this is a way that we can execute on those projects without placing a greater burden on village taxpayers.
If we get into a situation, Aiden, where our projected revenues are more than we expected, and we get to do a bunch of projects and say there's a surplus in those funds, is it something that we could consider giving back to the taxpayer as a discount?
I guess we could, but in my mind, building the infrastructure without having to pay tax, without having to raise taxes, is in and of itself giving back to the taxpayer. I think this will come up for once we get one summer under our belt. I mean, I've been working on projections, been working with Lex to try and get some idea. I think it's fairly safe to say that every parking lot on Main Street and Long Wharf is full all the time. Whether this fee will drive people away, the experience of other villages and other cities and municipalities is that it doesn't. We have a lot of options for residents to park without going onto Main Street or Long Wharf during the summer. But hell, if we have that great problem of being way ahead of our projections at the end of 21, I think we can revisit it. We can revisit everything at the end. Once we have real data, absolutely. I'm open to discussion. I'm sure everybody is on that.
Thank you. More to talk about in February. Denise, you're going to talk a little bit about our current clearing laws and where we're going and what we're doing about clearing.
Yes. Hopefully this should be really quick. I know it says clearing, but there's just 3 minor code provisions changes that I would like to ask the board to consider. And so I've asked Chelsea to pull up this document just sort of as a guide, but I'll run through it quickly, and we will email this to all of you. The first is that we have a provision in the code that requires transitional yards between commercial zones and residential zones. And the reason is to protect the residential neighbor from, the light and the sounds associated with the commercial use. The problem is we found a loophole in the code, which does not provide for that transitional yard if you're a pre-existing non-conforming use and you happen to be in a residential zone. So what we would like to do is modify the code by adding the language that you see in red to allow for that transitional yard to be a requirement for pre-existing non-conforming uses that are commercial that just happen to be in residential districts, but are adjacent to residential uses. So not something the board needs to answer me on tonight. I just sort of wanted to introduce it and get you thinking about it. And it's also a request from the planning board. We've run this through the planning board and they are in favor of it as well. The second modification would be just changing the definition of structure. Right now, the definition of structure excludes at-grade walkways and access driveways, and that has become problematic in commercial projects because it's not always clear what's the driveway, what's the parking lot, and the method that our building inspectors have used is to count those structures as structures the way they should be, and not have them be an exception to that calculation. What we'd like to do is codify that, actually put that in the code so that it's clear. And again, you'll see that change in red. Here we're changing the structural definition to exclude at-grade walkways and access driveways for single family residences, but not for commercial uses. And then the third request is, as you know, we've been working for a long time now on a revised or a new clearing law for the village. But as we're working on that, we are seeing, unfortunately, more and more clear cutting going on vacant lots. Clear cutting is not permitted under the existing code, but the section where it exists is sort of buried. It's not easy to find, and not many people are aware of it. So I would like to amend that provision. And Chelsea, could you go to the second page? Is it? Thank you. So the amendment would make it clear that if you are clearing, and your clearing is going to be in connection with a building permit, because you're clearing on a vacant lot or a previously undeveloped lot, you do need to go down to the building department and get a building permit first. You don't clear first, go to the building department and get your building permit for your house. You go down and do both at the same time. So that is a stopgap measure, simply to make it clear what our existing code does say, and thereby making it more enforceable and, more bringing light and attention to the fact that it is in our code, and that trying to discourage applicants from clear cutting. So those are the three, sort of minor, but important changes that I would ask the board to consider. And Kathy Eisman supports the changes, and the planning board does as well.
Trustee LaRocca, you have a comment?
Just two quick questions, Denise.
Sure.
Number one, can you give any examples, anywhere in the village, I guess, where there are specific examples of this problem that has been identified?
The problem with the
In the first item, I'm sorry, the first. The
sure.
first item, yeah.
Yes, for example, there is a next to the gas station on Route 114, Hampton Street, there is a property that currently has a warehouse on it.
It's just east or south of the gas station.
Exactly. It's
Barn type structure.
Right.
Yes,
Wooden
as you're
structure.
as you're coming into the village, it would be before the
Just before the station.
yeah.
Right.
So that property's been in for site plan approval, but because of this loophole, they don't need to observe those transitional yards, which leaves a lack of protection for the neighbor that's directly, and I'm very bad with directions.
South.
Thank you. Directly south of that commercial site. And the planning board will ask them, the planning board will require that they observe these transitional yards, even though it's not in the code, but they would prefer that it actually be in the code, and that, the code support that request.
Got it. Well, thank you. And that's a good example to, I think it's an area we all know and pass. Second part of the question is,
Mhm.
what part of, certainly the first item, but any of the three items will be affected in any way by the possible consideration by the front study group?
I'm sorry,
Is
Jim.
there-
I couldn't hear the whole. I think you asked me if this would impact what's happening with the new code provisions for the
Right.
the overlay district. And
Right.
there's
Any of the three items, any of the
Yeah,
three items.
okay. So for any of the three items, none of them should be in conflict with what the overlay district provisions would provide for. So they would work in sync with the overlay provisions. The overlay provisions may override or change that transitional yard. I'm not sure yet, but they would be able to function together side by side. It's just that the overlay district may modify it in some way.
Okay, I get that. Just, I think then as we go forward on that, on the study front,
Mhm.
that we be alert to coming back to that question.
Sure,
Whether-
absolutely.
Not just conflict, but even more importantly, just how does it fit together?
Right.
You don't want a contradiction in there.
Absolutely.
Or
No,
take
yeah.
away one hand, which is just, we're just creating with the other.
Understood. Yeah, I feel pretty good about it because Kathy Eisman worked with me on this hand in hand, and she's been so involved with the overlay district legislation that so that gave me an extra boost of confidence that there wouldn't be any conflict. But we'll certainly keep it on the radar.
And thanks for your good work on all of this, but thanks. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Chelsea, can you unmute Mary Ann Eddy? She'd like to say something.
Hi, thank you. Denise, I may have missed it, but
Yeah, sure.
this kind of brings up the same question that we have in the Harbor Committee. And that's like, what are the penalties? Because we have people that come in, they blow it down, all the waterfront vegetation. And then it's, oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
And
So
really, I know Bob Plum is working on this, but I think we can't ignore that because it's only as good as what the penalties are.
mhm. Understood. Yeah, I did. I don't know if you were on the meeting at the time, but we do have our prosecutor working through the code to amend the penalties sections for the code provisions that we're talking about. And he's going to have a proposal for us by the end of this week. So we should have something soon to look at that will address this question that you're asking.
That's great. I had no idea. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Is there anyone else? Otherwise, Denise, what's the next step? You will.
I just, I would just like to draft the notice for the next month. So you wouldn't have a hearing until March.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next is a discussion item. Sag Harbor has been invited to join the East Hampton Town and Village Disabilities Advisory Board. I went to the first meeting along with our code enforcement officer by Zoom last month, and we will continue to do that. We're also looking for residents who will, who might be interested in joining it, and we have. But I think it's a great committee. They do a lot of obviously very good, important work, but it's also very good for our code enforcement to be part of it, to hear what the town and villages are doing, and becoming more important every day as we have some issues. So, our next is our speed sign data. The Chief of Police, Austin McGuire, is going to talk about what we're finding out with our new little blinky signs. I keep calling them blinky signs. I really should call them something a little bit
What
more.
we paid for them, we should probably call them something better. I haven't had a chance really to go and delve into too much of it. And the mayor and I discussed this today and yesterday. What we're finding out about the data is we need more data. I think we were all fairly shocked back in November when we had them up for a week and we were showing, I believe it was 22,000 cars going just northbound into the village. So we would say that there's approximately 44,000 cars in a week just traversing Main Street in and out of the village, just on the from Main Street into the turnpike. That seems to have gone down. I have data from December 4th to January 11th. The average of cars just on Main Street was 18,298 per week, which was down. I'm guessing because I really don't, this is just a hypothesis that because of the holiday season, there were less people working, there were less people going to school, so there was probably less people on the roadway. That's a hypothesis. I could be completely wrong. So I think what we need to do with these signs is continue monitoring them, seeing the ebbs and flows in cars. I think we can all agree that there's a lot of people coming through the village on a daily basis. I also have on order, and I discussed this, I forget what meeting. We have it doesn't look like much, but it is a portable radar and also counts cars as well. So basically a suitcase that you can set up anywhere and we can collect data. So these signs, and I have seen it myself when I'm behind people who see the signs, the blinky signs, and they light up, that they actually slow down. They do work to get people on the brake. So this is something that people will not really notice unless they know what they're looking for. And it's portable, so I can move it from location to location based on what we're looking for. That will not, shock people into slowing down. And we can get true and accurate data on how fast they're going and how many people are actually traveling through that area. Like I said, there's a lot of places we've had a lot of complaints and a lot of people, and I myself am kind of want to know what's going on different roads. That these big signs take up, they have a pretty big footprint, so that's not why we didn't decide to put them on Madison Street. And I walked around with the electrician who was installing them, and we were really limited as to where we could put them, where it wouldn't be too obtrusive, and we could put it, because I want to say it has a 24 by 24 cement base. So we will continue to track this data. Obviously, this is also a very odd year, so it's not like I can go back to 2019, which you'll hear about in the annual report. This is an odd year, so we can't use this as a benchmark for what I expect to see going forward. I may be wrong, I don't know, but we will see on the signs. But we're monitoring. We had some glitches with a couple of the signs. They've been fixed. The electrician came out, fixed them all up. They're ready to go. So by next month, we'll pull the data again, and I'll have some better data. But then I think if everyone gets vaccinated, or with the vaccines start to move out a lot quicker, we will see a summer like we've never seen, I think. So, if it's okay, Mayor, I'll move on to the next item.
Yep. Yes, please.
So just a police reform update. As you all may know, the governor came out and said we have to reform and reinvent the police department, come up with a report on that and methods of what we're going to do, and have that adopted by the village board by April 1st. We've been working, I have 8 people on our committee. We've had one public meeting We have another public meeting tomorrow night at 6. If anyone's interested in attending, the login for the meeting is on the village website, the village Facebook page, and the police Facebook page. And then next week, a week from tonight, I will meet with the committee. If we need to have another public meeting, we will. Last time it was, there were some people out of most of the people from the committee. But I think thankfully, we don't have too much to discuss here in Sag Harbor Village. So next Tuesday, we're going to start with the committee. If we need to have another public meeting, and I will consult with my committee next week to see if they want to, we will. But otherwise, full steam ahead for an April 1st reform plan.
Great. Thank you. We have any questions or comments for AJ?
One thing I wanted to mention when AJ, when you did when you put the car counter on Main Street, and you came up with 22,000. Didn't you also have one on Germain that came up with like 18?
Yes.
That's like 3/4 of the car, as many cars on Germain as there were on Main.
Well, that leads me to believe, if you think of all the people coming through the village, I would think that the Turnpike into Main Street would be the least traveled route. I think Brick Hill to Germain, or the 114 over the bridge onto Division Street to Hampton Street would be a more traveled route. But obviously the bigger trucks have to come down certain routes. So yeah, no, there's a ton of people here. And I think that with everything going on with the COVID and with all the construction going on and all the people who work now, who quite honestly can't afford to live out here and work out here, they're traveling out here and they don't want to sit on 27 traffic. Or they don't want to 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock from their house in the morning. So at least on at least on the back road through Noyak Road, at least you're moving for the most part. So that may be more advantageous to people.
Yeah.
Good question, AJ. You talked about the size of the footprint for these units, and I think they're great. They certainly have slowed me down. So I noticed in Noyak Road, they have smaller units that attach to existing infrastructure. Is that something we could consider for some of the smaller?
Absolutely. I was, trying to go with a green theme. I thought that the solar power would just fit that. But yes, we can actually, those are probably, I haven't looked into them, but they're probably a lot less expensive than what we have now. And to just hook onto a utility pole or something like that, it would, we could definitely look into that. And we could,
They're great. I think they're really effective. Thank you for doing that.
And I think what we'll see as we can really start parsing this data is that it will slow people down. I think as, once, if you know it's there, you'll start slowing down, but it just over time, you will start remembering, oh yeah, this really is a 20-mile-an-hour street, which is easy to forget, even though the whole village is a 20-mile-an-hour street, and you should be able to remember that. But it's a positive thing, so that's great. And the police reform, the first meeting was excellent. We're doing a great job, and we have new bylaws coming out every week, so within the police reform and the codes, so that's also very good. We're well ahead of the game. Do we have anyone who would like to make any public comment on anything that has not been talked about this evening, or anything else? We have some time for public comment now. I don't see any hands, and I have not gotten any text messages other from Nada Barry, who couldn't get in. No one? All right. In that case, we will move on to our department and committee reports. So staying with the police, we do have the end of year report. So for December alone, we had 673 calls for service, 2 unlicensed operators, 5 suspended registrations, and 4 motor vehicle accidents, as well as 7 arrests, 1 DWI, and 41. AJ, while you're unmuted, what's a UTTS?
I'm sorry, a uniform traffic ticket.
Thank you. Overall for the year, we are up ever so slightly for calls for services, although the end of the year has been up, the beginning of the year was way down. Just as we started locking down, people were also locking down and not calling the police. Arrests are down 30%. DWI is down almost 50%, which is one of the silver linings to the restaurants and bars being closed. And the uniform traffic is down 34%, and parking tickets were down 42%, which is also going to obviously affect our revenue. So as we talk about the fines and forfeitures. So as we say, every time we talk about 2020, it was not a normal year. But 2021, although not starting out normal, hopefully we'll get there at some point. And it is Sag Harbor. We are a year-round community. It's sort of nice to be a year-round community in some ways. So let's enjoy it while we have it. And but the summer crowds will come back. So that is the police report. Docs, we DACA had $100,000 or $98,882 in December. That is significantly less than December of 19, but I don't think that that's going to be a long-term. Overall, our year-to-date, we are about $100,000 ahead or $80,000 ahead of where we were. The water is still beautiful. The sailboats were out this weekend doing the frostbiting. The ice eaters and bubble hoses have all been installed, but hopefully we will not have a frozen bay. And obviously there were no transactions for dockage or moorings this past month, but we have started getting our inquiries for docks for the upcoming season. Seasonal slip contracts have been set out. If you have a seasonal dock and you want it, make sure you get your money in by Friday, I believe.
Is that the right day?
I don't know, Beth?
Yes, that's the correct day, the 15th.
Yeah.
Okay.
January 15th. I know. But make sure you get your contract in, because you will lose your spots. Past year was busy, the docks did well, and there were no marine patrols. We will be having a schedule of marine patrols for this summer that we will be creating without announcing the dates, but we will be getting everyone to promise a set number of, a set number of inspections on the water for each month during the summer months while there are boats out, so that we can make sure that everything is closed and proper. And those are the two reports for the police and the docks. And I've lost Trustee Gardella.
Thank you, Mayor. For the month of December 2020, the fire department had 722 man-hours. There were 2 structure fires that we responded to, 1 mutual aid call to Bridgehampton, and there were 3 miscellaneous alarms. They also responded to 42 other reported alarms in the district, bringing the total calls for 2020 to a record 598 calls for service for the fire department. That's the fire department and the chiefs combined. We did complete the installation of the high efficiency gas boiler at the firehouse. Also, the fire department, the chiefs, especially our second assistant chief, Andrew Blodorn, set up a website for the members to log on to check for information, download and print documents that are needed. So they did a really excellent job on that. I wanted to congratulate the chiefs for doing that. Obviously, it was a very difficult year for the fire department dealing with COVID concerns. The total man hours for the year were 10,824 and a half man hours. That was for the year. That was for the complete year. And I have a breakdown of what that was. 2 brush fires for 35 and a half hours, 29 structure fires for 1,122 and a half hours, 2 vehicle fires for 53 hours, 54 miscellaneous alarms for 2,914 hours, 2 standbys for 98 hours, 420 chiefs calls. So these are calls that the chiefs and the captains are asked to respond to for 800 hours, 81 false chiefs calls, 2 false alarms, 32 parades. And with those parades, we're talking about birthday parades that the firemen did. As we got information from the community whose birthday it was, the department would send out an engine with some members and to celebrate the person's birthday.
And, can you point, that was done at the suggestion of the fire department. It was a way for us to be running the trucks because they weren't.
Correct. So it
that was
served.
something that was good for us, not something that was a pain.
Correct. That's correct. And we had 71 meetings for 1,551 hours, 26 drills for 982 hours, 88 training sessions for 1,119 and a half hours, 54 work details, 624 and a half hours. We went to 8 firemen services for 283 hours, 49 work nights for 979 and a half hours, and 9 mutual aid calls for 298 and a half hours for a total of 10,824 and a half hours. So you can see, even in the middle of a pandemic, our fire department was very active. So I want to thank all the members of the department and the chiefs for doing an excellent job. I just got a message from our Assistant Chief O'Brien to mention that there's also safety announcements on that website, as well as training information. If he wants to talk about that, can somebody unmute Kevin for us? Kevin O'Brien Jr.
Hey, Tom, thank you. Yeah, Andrew did a great job with the website. It's really working out well for us to get information out to our membership, but we also put things on there for news that the public can see, activities that we've done. We will hopefully one day be able to have our carnival and pancake breakfast, spaghetti dinners again, and we'll have information like that on there for the public. There's also a safety area for, if you need to teach your children how to cook safely, how to do things like that, how to use fire extinguishers. I know I get phone calls at the firehouse all the time with people asking just how to use the fire extinguisher they just bought at the hardware store. So we do have things on there for the public like that. So yeah, Andrew did a great job. Thank you, Tommy.
Welcome. Thank you. Excellent job. So that's my report for the fire department. As far as the ambulance goes, in the month of December 2020, we had 698 man hours. We had 50 emergency calls, 4 work nights, 2 meetings, 4 training sessions. We had no drills, no work details, no parades, and no standbys. Now, as compared to December of 2019, which we had 873 man hours, you can see the calls are the same. We had 51 calls, but we had 6 training sessions. So that adds, the training has been cut down because of the COVID. We can't meet together as a group, so that makes that more difficult. I've also been in touch with, I think AJ has been helping us out with this, trying to see if we can possibly have administer the vaccine at some point or set up a site through New York State. I did just get an email forwarded to me from Missy to do some training. There's some training we have 6 critical care EMTs that are able to administer the vaccine intramuscular, but you have to do a small training session with the state. So I have a link. One of our paid paramedics is a trainer. So I'll be taking that course. So I'll be certified to administer the vaccine if at some point we do get a site set up, either at the firehouse or somewhere in the village where we can administer the vaccine. We're exploring the feasibility of that. The police chief has been helping us with that. So I want to thank AJ for getting involved to see what the feasibility of it is. So do you want to comment on that, AJ?
Yes, please, Tom, thank you. I was in touch with Robert Ross. I sent him an email. I haven't heard back. I know, having spoke with them on Friday, they're quite overwhelmed. Also, the supply of the vaccine is not what they were hoping for. It's very sporadic. They get some, they don't get some. I literally got an email at 5 o'clock tonight from Suffolk County Police who said they had 2 spots for me, for 2 of my officers. So they're going to get vaccinated tomorrow at noon in Brentwood. And, they're doing Suffolk Police are doing their best, and they have they actually have police medics, and the police medics have taken this class that Tom said he's going to take. So I think the issue is basically just supply of the vaccine at this point. It doesn't seem like we're getting that. I believe the governor spoke to that today, that we have 7 million New Yorkers to vaccinate, and we're getting 300,000 doses a week or something. So hopefully that gets better. But yeah, and I offered, I sent the mayor an email, CC'd her on it, that we've offered the firehouse. But at this point, I think it's just the supply of the vaccine is in question.
Thank you, AJ. I just figured we would do everything we could to be prepared if at some point things do open up and we're able to do this. If our other CCs want to take the class with me, they're welcome to do it, so that at least we're prepared if the time comes to administer the vaccine. So on a yearly basis, I have the numbers here for the ambulance. We did 737 calls. We did 52 work nights, 24 meetings, 41 training sessions, 1 drill, 4 work details, no parades, and 2 standbys, for a total of 10,888 man hours. So you can see we're right on par with the fire department. The only difference is we have 27 members, whereas the fire department has 150 plus. So the ambulance has done an outstanding job this year, keeping up with the calls and also preventing the COVID virus from going through our ranks. I don't think we had a single incident this year of any of our members contracting the virus. And a lot of that is due to that machine that we bought early on in the process. I think it was either early March that the board approved. Debbie had presented it to us, that aeroclave system, which basically sanitizes the ambulances after each call. So, I've been exposed to the virus through patients. Luckily, I haven't contracted it. I've also received the first vaccine shot, as well as a lot of our members in the ambulance. I think there's only a couple who haven't taken the shot yet. And we're due to get our second dose sometime at the end of January. So that's moving forward. If you can unmute Debbie, if she wants anything to add to that, you could do that, please. Debbie O'Brien.
Elsie, can we get Debbie unmuted? There you go.
Hi.
Yeah, luckily, none of our people have contracted it, and the vaccine went well with the first one. Just a couple of people decided against it. And hopefully the vaccines will be available for the second vaccine when they're due. And that machine has worked wonders. Nobody has gotten COVID from any patients that we have transported. There were a couple people that got it, but from outside sources, not from the ambulance calls.
I want to add my thanks to you and to Missy for getting that machine. To Tom's comments, that was brilliant. I can picture that day perfectly, and that was a big help.
Certainly was.
Right.
Thanks.
So the only thing before I conclude, go ahead, Jim, you had a question?
While we have Debbie on, I just wanted to pay my respects to the person of the year for 2020. Very proud of all the work you've done, and tonight's report reminds us of some of that work. So you're now a living legend in the village of Sag Harbor.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So in concluding, I just wanted to say that we had, I think Beth has been working on it also. We had approved the resolution that the New York State Legislature had approved to award the points. I believe it was 5 points a month for the LoSAP credit. And I just wanted to make sure, I think Beth has been working on it, that the points for the fire department, which we prorated to 47.9 points, that the ambulance was getting the same amount. And I was just wondering how Beth made out with that, if that's been resolved.
That's on the agenda. We've added that to it's the last item on the agenda this evening, but that's been sorted out.
Thank you.
We'll just wait for the resolution after the board considers it from PenFlex. And a notice of amendment will be reissued.
Okay, because I didn't see that. I guess I have the older packet.
You may, yeah, this was sort of last minute. We had a few things that came on last minute this evening.
Okay, so I just wanted to thank all the ambulance members for all their hard work, and the COVID virus is still out there. We're still battling it. It's a serious situation, and I just wish everybody, a healthy 2021, and that we'll get through this. That's my report.
Thank you. Next, we're going to have Trustee Plum about building department and code enforcement. I just want to give everyone a heads up about our building department. As you all know, Tom Priato, our senior building inspector, did resign. His last day was last Friday. He will be missed, but I'm sure he will have a great and influential time in East Hampton. But we are currently looking for a senior building inspector as well as a part-time building inspector. So please, anyone who knows anyone who is qualified, get the word out. And we have a part-time consultant who will also be our part-time building inspector, and he will be here 1 to 2 days a week, depending on how much we need him. He is also in Patchogue, and their department, unfortunately, is being ravaged by the virus at the moment. So he is trying to backstop there as well as work for us. So we'll be a little thin. If anybody is waiting for permits and things, please bear with us. But anyway, sorry, Bob, go ahead with.
Yeah, go ahead. I'll just say, and just for starters, that we got our plan completedness form pretty much fleshed out, and Nelson Pope Voorhees is going to be doing the initial plan reviews, which will free up a lot of time for any of the inspectors we get, or anyone, the part-time, or to give them more time out, the inspectors put time out in the field where they should be, and the boards should not be seeing as many or any incomplete applications anymore, which is a total waste of time. As far as the building department goes, I got, let's see, it's kind of hard to read because it's all, well, I got inspections, there were 15, CVOs 17, certificates of compliance 10, notices of violation 4, 0 stop work orders, and the receipts this month were $15,197.75, which puts us just $25,000 behind last year out of $350,000, which is not too bad. It's like 5%. And actually, that's all I have tonight for the building department.
Okay, great. Trustee Corish, sewer and grants, please.
Thank you, Mayor Mulcahy. We'll start off with the sewer report for the month of December. Total gallons received 1.873. Total gallons of sludge removed 18,500. The DMR reports were forwarded on January 7th. Suffolk County DHS inspection date. The next inspection will be 18th of February. And New York State DEC inspection date is open as always. We had no complaints in the month of December. And the summary of operations: wastewater treatment plant is running well under all permitted levels. We're now operating on 3 basins, which is normal for this time of the year. We had 3 alarms at the plant. All the problems have been fixed. Benson were out to fix a mixer in basin number 2. They took the mixer away to be repaired, and we substituted a mixer from one of the offline tanks. Eagle Control were out to repair dissolved oxygen sensor in basin 3. And they're putting together a code to replace that oxygen sensor and control. The flow decrease from November to December was approximately 61,000 gallons. Later on in our agenda, we have a motion to approve an upgrade to the control panel. We had an issue, if anybody remembers, November, December, with some communication from our control panel, which is of 1970s vintage. And so we're going to be upgrading that to a more digital control, which will also allow the operators to have self-app access to what's going on in the plant. So when we get these alarms in the middle of the night, they'll be able to do some investigation from home. And all in all, it's time that a lot of that, some of that at least, equipment in the plant is due for upgrade. We'd like to offer congratulations to Franz Gavoni, who's been with us for over a year now at the plant. He recently passed his 3rd New York State sewage treatment plant operators exam. And that's no mean feat. If you saw the stack of books that Fran's been carrying around for the last 6 months, it is not insubstantial. Ought to be illegal. I mean, this really is the amount of knowledge that Fran's been able to assimilate in a very, very short amount of time is remarkable. And it's an extraordinary achievement in the time frame. And it's been great for Fran. It's also great for the village because we really need another licensed operator. Fran has 1 more exam to do to become fully licensed, which we hope, COVID permitting, will take place sometime in late February, early March. So wish Fran the best of luck. And I'm rooting for him. I know everybody else is. I'd like to express my thanks this evening. I was remiss in not doing this earlier. Maybe about a month, 2 months ago, Michael Ryle from the Riverhead Sewage Treatment Plant gave us a substantial amount of ultraviolet equipment that we can use in our plant. All this equipment was released because of an upgrade. And the value would be somewhere between $20,000 and $30,000. We have bulbs, glass tubes, stainless steel fittings. So now we have a good stock there that's really beneficial to the village and to the plant. So I would like to extend my thanks to him. And we really do appreciate the help. It's expensive equipment. And now for grants, Mayor. We had a good meeting this month with Jennifer Messiano. We talked about grants for the park. We looked at a lot of different aspects. Won't go into all of the details, but Jennifer is now investigating what funding might be available for the park from various sources, and we hope to follow up soon. And I look forward to keeping the board up to date as that develops. The East Hampton CPF Water Quality Committee have announced that they have another round of funding will be available, and that March the 11th is the closing date. So we're looking to the next stage of the sewage treatment plant, or the sewage treatment master plan, to see if we can move some sections of the village into an engineering phase. So this announcement just came out this week. So I'm hopefully going to sit down with Jennifer, Mark Wagner, John Parker, and everybody involved to make sure that we can get an application in. It's pretty, in the greater scheme of things, for grant applications, it's a pretty tight window, but I think we can make it by March 11th. There's been no announcement from Southampton Water Quality. They normally run a little later. And obviously COVID is playing havoc with everybody's schedule still. Before I finish, I'd like to congratulate Debbie on being Person of the Year. And I'd like to congratulate Tom, everybody in the fire department, and especially everybody in the ambulance corps for everything they do for this village, like day in and day out. It has been an enormously difficult year for them, I know. And I don't know what to say. I mean, I'm just humbled every time I hear what you guys do on a regular basis. And you truly are the unsung heroes of our village. And thank you very much. Thanks, man.
Thank you, Aidan. If I could just add to that, to thank our police officers also.
Of course.
Because on a lot of these, I know you didn't mean to, on a lot of these calls that I go to that are difficult calls where people are in crisis, our police officers are there. They're the first ones there, and they're either performing, like I said, performing CPR, or they're giving somebody oxygen. So thank you to AJ and his officers. They're always there. They're always there when we need them.
Thank you for the
Absolutely,
evaluation. I
Tom.
appreciate that.
Thanks, AJ.
The only question I have, Aiden, for Fran, is there anything, maybe it's for Beth too, is there anything we need to do as a board to get Fran to that final step? Or anything we need to approve?
No, I think we can work through it. We will get him all of the. Fran's been really wonderful at working his way through this. What he has done is remarkable. I mean, my time here, nobody's managed to navigate this exam process in such a short amount of time. We'll get Fran whatever instruction or revision through Mark Wagner and Cameron. If there's anything he needs, he knows he only has to ask. I've talked to him, but I appreciate you bringing that up. So hopefully, in 6 weeks from now, we'll have another licensed operator.
That's
Thanks,
awesome.
Tom. I appreciate
That's
it.
great.
It is awesome. It really is.
All right, trustee LaRocca.
Thank you, Mayor. Before I just to supplement AJ's report, AJ and I have discussed the pending legislation that Denise has been working on that really has two parts to it: the completing the certifications for the parks that we have. We've learned last year that some parks are fully certified under our code, some less so, and particularly if the grant process ramps up for other, not just Steinbeck, but for other properties, we want to get those certifications fully conforming. The second thing we talked about is that with the approach of spring and the increase undoubtedly of use, that the other part of what Denise has been working on, which is the rules and regs and the governance of the park, we should come back to that soon. So the three of us will hopefully have it in shape for the February meeting, but if not, certainly the March meeting, so that AJ and the troops have a full, fresh manual on what the uses and prohibitions are in the park properties.
Yes, we have a pretty good draft of those regulations with a few questions that I need to pose to you or the trustees, just to fill in a few blanks. But otherwise, I think that you're in very good shape for having a public hearing. If not at I guess it would be your March meeting, because you'd have to notice it next month, February.
Okay, if we could do the notice part, that's just a few weeks from now, that'd be great.
Sure.
We need to get together in the meantime, just holler.
Okay.
Okay, thanks. And the other collateral report to the docs report, I mentioned it, it'll come through the events process, but on May 22nd, this locally based cancer fighting organization called Fighting Chance, headed by Duncan Darrow, a longtime resident of the village, is going to stage a flotilla from Long Wharf around Shelter Island. It's a fundraising and a high-spirited event. A great plan to get a lot of people together without getting them together, because everybody will be on their own boat. The boats will be kept to the social distancing and limited numbers. So we have already, I think, Duncan already has had a full subscription for the flotilla. So just mention it as something that's coming. The Public Works completed its leaf process just before the weather turned really sour. And it's always important for them to get the leaf work out of the way and the leaves out of the way before the onset of the snow. The December 16th and 17th were the really messy days. We got lucky that the 5 or 6 inches on the 16th was washed away pretty thoroughly made a mess, but in the days that follow. The preparation of the trucks, preparation of the milk mix and all of that is continuing as we get through now the the center part of the winter. We did have heard from some folks along Havens Beach about the or near Havens Beach about the basement down there, removal from Commercial District to Principal Main Street. It's a matter that comes up every year. We don't have a lot of options on where that snow can be moved to if we're going to clear Main Street as effectively as we do on behalf of the commerce and the residents that hope to get down there to the grocery and the pharmacies and so forth. So I walked down there with Chairman Marionetti. There was one of the smaller piles still remaining. They're not pretty. They do collect with them some of the urban runoff that would otherwise find its way down in a more conventional rainfall. We did discuss the possibility of the trucks putting the snow spoils on what is informally referred to as the dog park. The problem with that is the strength of the ground. You can't take a fully loaded truck full of snow and ice and put it out on that mud without risking sinking into the mud. It's, recall most of that is fill, and so the surface is not there. D is committed to putting the snows to the side as best he can. Volume is important, sequence of storms and so forth, but we're sympathetic, but it is something that as long as there's snow, the possibility of being disposed of down there will be with us. And we've asked the Harbor Committee if they have alternative ideas to certainly present them, and Dee and I will have a look at them. It was mentioned during the finance report that our activity in the court remains considerably behind last year. This is a direct and immediate consequence of COVID. The court was physically open for a period of time, and then the Office of Court Administration, to whom our court answers, as do all the other courts, went back to all remote. All remote profoundly influences the volume of cases that can be fairly and fully adjudicated. And so the number that we're looking at is possibly as high as a 50% reduction in the gross revenues of the court. Is one concern about it, but also the necessity and the desirability of moving justice along when there are disputes, when there are people who've been cited and so forth. The court personnel, one person comes in now that our building is opened again on a limited basis, just to be, not to the public, but just for the purposes of staffing one person in each floor. The court has better access to its computer system and its records. The numbers are not important, they're just way behind what we're used to seeing. With that, I think I've covered it all. Thank you, Mayor.
You. Going forward, we are going to do some shuffling around of responsibilities. So as of February, Trustee LaRocca is going to take docks and harbor, and I am going to take over Steinbeck Park and some of the park overall things. As far as Steinbeck Park goes, we did launch our Steinbeck Park fundraising website in conjunction with the Sag Harbor Partnership about a week ago. It is beautiful. Trustee Korish did a fabulous job of designing it. Thank you ever so much. It's beautiful. And thank you to the partnership for being our fundraising partner with this. A letter has gone out to many people, and there will be many more letters and ads and things going out about it, but it's really wonderful. And I strongly suggest you all go buy a tree immediately.
A bench.
Or a bench. Or
a little library.
What? But it's really quite lovely. So go look at it. You can get there through the partnerships website, through the Sag Harbor website, or through johnsteinbeckwaterfrontpark.org directly. So can I get a motion to accept the department reports, please?
Motion.
Thank you. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We have no correspondence for review. We have so moving on, we have, can I get authorization for signing the DACA agreement for 1-year term effective January 1st in the amount of $5,988?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion for the village clerk to advertise the following, and I'm going to read a lot of dates out. These dates will all be on the website. We need to advertise the following: the tentative assessment roll when it is received, the grievance day, which will be February 16th from 1 to 5 p.m. I assume that will be by Zoom. It's normally in person in our meeting room, but I assume we will be doing it by Zoom. Look at the website for dates for that, and also in the ad that we will be doing. A tax sale for March 16th at 10 a.m. The budget schedule for the 2021-2022 fiscal year, that will be at February 24th, will be the 6 p.m. public input for our next year's budget. March 24th at 6 p.m., we will present a tentative budget. And on April 13th at 6 p.m., we will vote on the budget. Those will all have advertising and be posted on the website. We will also be doing ads for snow and ice, reminding people that they are to take their snow and ice off of their sidewalks. If it snows, they have 24 hours to shovel their sidewalks. Also, that you cannot park on a main thoroughfare during a snowstorm, and you have to move your car off the road so that the roads can be plowed. So those reminders will all be advertised. Can I get a motion, please?
Moved.
Thank you. Bob,
Second.
Second. Sorry.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Approval to set time and date for the annual village election. It will be June 15th between the hours of 12 noon and 9 p.m. at the fire headquarters on Brick Kiln Road, declaring vacancies and to advertise all notices for the village. Trustee Corish.
I have a question I brought up before the delayed election, last trustee election that was delayed. Is the opening of the polls at noon? I find that to be a strange anachronism. It's been around as long as I've been here. As to why we have a restricted amount of time for the trustee elections compared to any other election in town, especially when we want to encourage people in a time of COVID to go to the polls, that the more time we have. So I don't know if Denise can weigh in on this. Is this a state requirement? Is this something the village has control over? And can we change the time, and who would be discommoded by that?
I'm gonna have to look at it for you again, but I believe I researched this last time, and it was in the village law that we needed to start at noon. But I just don't want to commit to that because it's been too long. So I want to look at it again and remind myself.
If we vote on the date, can we come back and revisit the time?
I think we're pretty much stuck with the date.
No, the date's fine. I have no issue with the date. But it's just the idea that polls don't open till noon is.
Yeah, you don't. Beth, do you remember what answer I found?
No, I don't recall.
Okay.
Honestly.
I can check with Silva too and see if all village elections.
Yeah, I will definitely find the answer for you.
Right. Do we have time to? I mean, you can. Do we have time to change the time of this, or are we within a window that we have to make a decision tonight?
For
the time of the election, is there a
sorry.
certain amount of time prior to the election that we need to make public the time of the that the polls will be open? And do we have time to revisit this in February? For the time, we can decide on the date. I have no issue with that.
Yeah, I honestly don't know. I have to look at it for you. I just not familiar enough with election law.
And so we don't know if we approve this time tonight, whether we have the opportunity to change it.
Right,
exactly. I can see when our notices go out on that. I'll see if I can find the document where our notices go out. If you just give me a few minutes to look for that, I'll see if
Sure.
I can locate that.
Yeah, and I will do a little research while you're talking too, and see if I can find that for you.
There was an executive order, FYI, last night from the governor's office about the same laws that applied to the election that Tom and Jim were in. It will be fewer petition signatures will be needed and various other things. And anyone who wants an absentee ballot can get it. No excuses are needed.
Okay.
For the
But no delay in the calendar.
no delay in the calendar, but the same as what was in place for you in September will be in place for June.
I want to second Hayden's idea.
Yeah.
I know there's nothing formal here. Yeah. But I would second the idea that if we can extend the election, the hours of election day, we do that. And I think your quickest path maybe to updating where it is would be to speak to council at the Board of Elections, either in Hauppauge or in Albany. Somebody will know the answer to that. But I think it's a great idea. And anything that increases the franchise is a good idea.
Great. All right, let's move on. And if we have an answer before we're done, we can come back to it. Approval of the real property tax exemption income limits for senior citizens and disabled. May I get a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
You, all in favor?
Aye.
Just want to make sure Beth is getting all this. The LIPA lawsuit options and analysis, this was in everyone's packet. This is something that Fred Thiel is driving on behalf through the New York State Assembly. There's a lot of frustration, particularly after the storms this fall, with our current LIPA, PC, whoever National Grid, whatever their name is at the moment. It's not National Grid. I take that back. It's the
PSG&E.
Yes, G&E. So there are four options. What the feeling is that what they have right now is not working. Privatization is one. Reform of what's there currently is another. A new private public, which is what it is now, with a new partner. Or the fourth option is for it to become a public entity, and that is what New York State, the governor, and the Assembly are in favor of. And this is a resolution that would say that we support that theory as well. Questions, comments?
I would say just a caution that 25 years, 30 years ago, Westchester County sought to create that kind of an organization. And the law held at the time that if the state or one of its subsidiaries, like a county, becomes owner, and a public entity becomes owner of formerly private utility property, they have to be compensated. And that has killed many of these ideas in the past. The caution is that if in this modern era that can be revisited, we just have to be mindful that the infrastructure in our village is not something we ever want to buy because we can't afford it, don't want to run it, and so forth. So just a caution as this debate goes on. This debate will go on for a long time.
Mr. Korsh. Are you muted, perhaps? Aiden, we can't hear you, or I can't hear him.
No.
Sorry, I was saying is, could we, is there a possibility of tabling this? I don't know enough about this, and to Jim's point as to what this really means. I think I need to do a little due diligence on this and do some research before we vote on it.
Yes,
And
and
if
Fred had hoped to be here and couldn't be, so that's he can speak much more eloquently about.
Maybe he could explain it in February. I mean, from what Jim says, it's not time critical right now.
I haven't seen the actual proposal. I'm just reciting history.
Right. So should I make a motion that we table this?
That sounds fine. Can we get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
All right.
Authorization to accept the resignation of Sag Harbor Volunteer Ambulance Corps Ira Scheiger and Cassandra Slowinger and remove them from the insurance rolls.
Make the motion.
Thank you. Second.
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Adopt the retention and disposition schedule for New York local government records. Can I get a motion?
I move.
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Resolution authorizing to sign a agreement with Suffolk County Water to secure water services at the premises of 5 Ferry Road. This will be so that we have some water in the park for next year. So we have a greener park. We might not have sold every tree and bench available, but we'll at least have water there. Can I get a
I'll make the
motion?
motion.
You?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
January 2021 budget transfers. Motion,
I'll make the motion.
thank you.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Sag Harbor Fire Department Board of Wardens accept the application of Jared Warwick to the Otter House and request his name be placed on the rolls of the fire department as active probationary.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Austin McGuire, Chief of Police, request authorization to sell J&B Salvage of Southampton, the 2006 Crown Victoria for $400.
Motion.
Must be pretty beat up, huh? I second.
It's, it owes us nothing.
Okay.
Favor? Aye.
Aye.
Authorization to sign the stipulation pay to Richard Ryder in the sum of $17,000 constituent.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you.
Second.
All
I
in
have
favor?
one question.
Yes, sir.
When will Mr. Ryder get the money? I'm just curious. That has something that'll happen relatively quickly, or?
The money is direct deposited in his account tomorrow morning.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Thank
That's
you.
pretty quick.
That's very quick.
Approved payment, the approval of appointment of Peter Sarich as a part-time senior building inspector. This is the consultant I spoke of earlier. He will be with us, as I say, 1 to 2 days a week until we find someone permanently. I'll make the motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Authorization to sign an agreement to replace the control panel at the sewage treatment plant. Aiden,
Motion.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Authorization for Bob Bory Harbor Master to hire John Schroeder as a part-time harbor master at the rate of $25 per hour.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Authorization to advertise for part-time building inspectors.
Do these have to come from the civil list, these people? The civil service list?
Well, they have to meet the requirements of civil service. So they don't necessarily have to come from the civil service list.
Okay.
As long, so we're reaching out in many different avenues to try to secure part-time building inspectors.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Get a motion?
Motion.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And authorization to proceed with the consulting services relative to the addition to a cell tower to the village municipal building. This is to get the final engineering report done that the cupola will hold, is strong enough to hold the equipment. And as soon as we get that in our hands, we will start construction. So we will have cell service that will run the apps, that will pay for the parking.
Pay for the parking.
Sidewalks.
I'll make that motion.
Very fair.
I'll second, just a quick question. Early on, there was a question raised about the demand on our electric system that this might create. I presume that's been resolved because we're proceeding?
I think that's part of what they're looking at, is making, it was resolved by the engineers for the tenant, but we want to make sure that our engineers agree. So that's part of what they're looking at.
And there was then a question, was there not, about the additional load, how it gets metered or paid for, or is it wrapped up into the rental agreement?
Yeah, same thing. Once we know the answer to the first question, then we'll figure out the second one.
Thank you.
Sure.
Motion? Did we get that far? We
Oh,
did.
I made a motion. I think Jim seconded.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
And the approval to pay warrant 34, 35, 36, 37.
Sorry, one moment.
Did I miss-
Mayor,
Yes.
I'm sorry. There's one additional item that was added and that may not be on your agenda. One of the last changes was for Deborah O'Brien, President of Sag Harbor Volunteer Ambulance Corps, advises that the members are still restricted as they are unable to hold their monthly training sessions as well as other training sessions. So due to COVID-19, and therefore the special response rules should still apply to the ambulance corps as in the fire department.
I'll make that motion.
I have a question. We were discussing about, I think we went through Penflex about them getting the same LoSAP credit as the fire department got for 2020. Has that been resolved yet?
We've heard back from, and this is part of the solution to this, as that Debbie has advised the village that the members are still unable to perform and hold their monthly training sessions. So they haven't been restored to full duty. So this will allow them to gain the additional points. So Penflex will prepare a new resolution and a new notice of amendment to effectuate this correction.
I just want to make sure that the ambulance members, I can't vote on it because I'm a member in both, but I'm just going to throw this out there. We've passed a resolution giving them the points. And then after doing some investigation, I guess there was a different time frame used to apply the ambulance and the fire department. I just want to make sure that they both get the same, the fire department's been awarded 47.9 points from March to the end of the year. And I believe the ambulance was only credited from September to the end of the year, whereas they were restricted from March, we were all restricted from the time.
So that happened because of I haven't received a calculation from Ed at Penflex yet. He prepared the notice of amendment based on the request from Debbie back on September 21st, requesting that all members be restored to full duty. So that's where he calculated the points till. But after Debbie received it, she advised that they're not restored actually to full duty. So this is to correct that, because the September 21st date is why that happened. So now with this in place, he'll be able to recalculate the points, and I haven't gotten them yet from him. He's waiting for this approval from the trustees. And my understanding is that will give the ambulance corps the full credit for the points.
Yeah, it sounds like it's nullifying. So it's nullifying the problem that was created, I think, by the letter in September, basically, right?
Yeah.
So then the calculations, I think, should work fine.
Yeah, because in September, what Debbie did, what the ambulance corps did was tell those members that was 65 and over that if they wanted to, they could participate. But we had members from March that didn't show up because, they were afraid of bringing the virus back, or because they had members in their house that were, at high risk. So That's what this whole bill was created for in the legislature, to protect those people. So they wouldn't suffer. So if this is going to resolve that and they both get the same points, I would, that's great. I can't
Yeah.
vote on it, so
That's my understanding. That's what
Right.
he's looking
I'll
for.
recuse myself from it. But
Okay.
Can I get someone to second it?
A second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, now we're done.
Yes.
Okay.
That's a wrap on that part.
Warrant number 34, 35, 36, 37, 38,
39.
and 39. Can I get a motion to approve?
Motion.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
If there are any other public comments, just for everyone who's still on the phone, we will have our waterfront planning first draft. It should go on the website sometime late next week. We will be discussing it at the January 27th work session in depth, and then of course having public hearings at our 2 meetings in February and hopefully voting in March. But as you know, there are a lot of other things going on in February, March as well, including all the things we talked about tonight and budgets and everything else. So it's a lot of things to go through in the next few months. Can I get a motion to adjourn? Yes?
Sorry, I was just going to mention, Aiden, I can't find anything regarding the time on the election. The only notice that I can find that I actually have to post is 4 months prior to the election, which would be February 15th, which establishes the date for the Board of Trustees to submit to the Board of Elections the polling places. In that correspondence or in that notice also includes the time. So I guess this would need further clarification from Denise because I don't see that specifically mentioned.
So we could do this at the work session and we still have time to do it at the February meeting. You said February 14th?
February 15th is when I have to have this posted before the election. It's February 15th, 4 months prior.
There's got to be 2 Tuesdays before the 15th of February.
All right, so Denise, if
Yes,
you
yeah.
the Board of Elections, I will reach out to NICOM and SCOVA and we can.
Okay.
Do we have
Done.
what we're discussing? Do we have a time in mind? Should it be 6 a.m. like all the other elections, or is
7 a.m.
7 a.m.? Because I know election workers have to be there and oversee it, so I don't want to be
Right.
too generous with other people's time. But it would seem to me that it would have to be at the very latest 8 a.m. 7 a.m. would be good.
I think 7 works. By the way, February 9th is our February meeting.
Okay. So why don't we see if we do 7 a.m. till 9 p.m.?
Works for me.
Sounds good.
We may need additional election inspectors or something like that, provided this
Okay.
all works as well, because it's a long day, maybe splitting the shifts or something like that for
Right.
the inspectors. That's
Okay. Or we could close the polls earlier so we're not there all night. All right, we'll find out more and talk
Okay.
about it in the next meeting.
Yep.
Making a motion to adjourn.
Motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Night,
Good night,
everyone.
everyone.
Hi, everyone.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank
Take care.
you.
Thank you.
Todd, I'm glad you made it.
Nada.
We can't hear you, but we'll hear tomorrow.
Don't even go there. I will not tell you the whole story because I don't know the answers.
We'll
Okay,
figure it out.
night all, I'm working on it. Very frustrated. And my mouse didn't work also for a while. I've never been quite so frustrated, I think. An hour and a half.
Oh, dear.
Nonsense.
All for this.
Okay, anyhow, I'm very pleased to see you all. Good night.
Good night.